In the year 2023, it's been a pretty bizarre year for movies in general. We had two strikes which have recently ended. Movies like Barbie and Oppenheimer are some of the highest grossing movies of the year, along with the Super Mario Brothers movie. But speaking of the Super Mario Brothers movie, video game movies are on the rise. With all of this happening, you would think, okay, maybe comic book movies would be hitting this year. But the answer would actually be no, or at least it would be a mixed bag. There's been some pretty good comic book shows and movies, such as Invincible, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, Loki Season 2, and for some people, Gen V. I haven't watched it because I haven't really watched The Boys, but I have heard great things about both series. However, to say that Marvel had a good year would be a fucking lie. As 2023 is gonna go down as one of the worst years in the Marvel Cinematic Universe's history, to the point where Marvel has basically restructured their entire movie lineup a total of maybe like three times in this one year. Blade was delayed from from July. No. What was Blade's first date? It was originally November of this year. Then they delayed it to September of 2024. And we thought, okay, Blade will finally come out. Then they delayed it to February 14th, 2025, which we were like, okay, that's just a couple months. And now they delayed it to November. This movie is just never coming out. Although we'll speak more on that in terms of the state of address for Marvel 2024, 2025, what can happen, what can't happen. But overall, I want to not only a state of address for Marvel Studios for 2023, but also kind of a state of address for DC. Although I think I'm gonna wait a little bit on DC since I kind of want to at least have Aquaman 2 come out to even speak about that movie. So we're gonna just hit the MCU ones first, and then we're gonna handle DC next month. I think that's what's best. And with the Marvels out, Marvel Studios has officially released everything that they were planning to release in 2023. Well, planning is a bit of an exaggeration, but they've released everything for this year. So let's get into the movies, what I think about them, what the overall reception has been to them, and overall how they impacted the Marvel Cinematic Universe in this god awful year that the franchise has had. And even hardcore fans have admitted that Marvel's not in a great place. Is it in shambles, like Soups said, or are they back, like Soups said? Let's find out. Starting off with Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. Now, if you personally know me, you know I do not like the Ant-Man sequels. I think the Ant-Man and the Wasp, the second Ant-Man movie, was pretty bad. And I thought Quantumania is the worst MCU movie that they've ever made. And that is a pretty big proclamation. However, there are some people on the internet that would actually agree with me this time around that Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania is indeed one of their worst movies, if not the worst movie the MCU has made up to this point. And it just feels like a soulless movie. It feels like a movie made by AI, which is kind of crazy, to be honest. I just feel like Peyton Reed doesn't have a distinct visual style to him, and there just wasn't a lot of energy. It felt generic, it felt bland, and the plot was kind of, I mean, in my opinion, it felt like filler for most of the hour because they're trying to hype up Kang as a mystery, even though the marketing campaign kind of just showed us what Kang was. I think Marvel's big mistake with this movie was writing this on Kang, and we could see this through the Variety article, even though most of that was bullshit. Most of it was not true, especially after seeing the Loki season 2 finale, and they said, "Oh my god, it's so Kang eccentric," and actually, Loki Season two's finale was the complete opposite. I also forgot to warn spoilers, I guess, for these upcoming projects, or maybe I won't go completely into spoilers, but we'll see. But anyways, Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, I thought it was, yeah, as I said, the worst. But overall reception, people were very negative about this movie. It was, I believe, at the time, the second MCU project to be rotten. on Rotten Tomatoes. I know Rotten Tomatoes isn't the most trustworthy website, but the MCU had a streak of movies. They had 25 movies that have never been rotten. Not even Thor the Dark World. Shockingly, not even Ant-Man and the Wasp, even though I think Ant-Man and the Wasp kind of started this trend of like kind of mediocrely shitty Marvel movies. But anyways, none of those movies got rotten. The first rotten movie is Eternals. And in my opinion, I don't think Eternals deserves a rotten. I mean, Eternals isn't like a great movie either, but like Eternals is maybe like a 60%. Like it's like a 6 out of 10. It's not horrible. I don't think Eternals is that bad. However, I will say at least that Quantumania is the lowest reviewed MCU movie ever. It is the or the lowest reviewed MCU project, sitting at 46%. And I think this movie actually does deserve the Rotten score that it got. On top of that, the box office for this movie was pretty horrible. It debuted to $106 million, I believe, which was amazing for this movie. It was the biggest opening for the Ant-Man franchise, you would hope, with something as pivotal as introducing Kang. We'll talk about Kang. I'm going to save all my thoughts for Kang for Loki Season 2, because Loki Season 2 does something interesting with the character, or at least, for Marvel in terms of how they handle the character. But Quantumania second weekend drop was horrible. The movie almost lost in its second weekend to Cocaine Bear. Almost lost to Cocaine Bear. That's pretty embarrassing. And the movie overall flopped. It grossed over 400 and I believe $76 million. And seeing the budget it had, like over $200 million, you would be like, oh, okay, it was profitable, right? But it was not profitable when you encounter in the marketing campaign, all this other stuff, becoming the first, I wouldn't say the first MCU money loser, because I think Eternals was the first money loser for Marvel. But like after that, they didn't really have a money loser. Spider-Man No Way Home made $1 billion. Doctor Strange almost made $1 billion. Thor did pretty good, shockingly, despite like the amount of hatred Thor: Love and Thunder had. Thor: Love and Thunder did pretty, I would just say okay, because the budget it had, it wasn't amazing, the box office for Thor, but Thor didn't embarrass itself either. And then Black Panther: Wakanda Forever made over $800 million. So, people were like, okay, Ant-Man, it's not the highest grossing, but maybe this will be the highest grossing Ant-Man movie. And people thought, okay, this opening weekend. No, Quantumania, ironically, has the biggest opening for the Ant-Man trilogy. It is also the lowest grossing Ant-Man movie of all time. It did worse than the first one back in 2015 when nobody knew who Ant-Man was. And it did worse than the previous movie, Ant-Man and the Wasp. And that's pretty bad, especially for a movie that was supposed to launch Kang. It was supposed to be the launch of the Multiverse Saga. You could just tell that the energy just died from this movie. And that Phase 5 did not start off good. It was very much so. I think it's a shitty movie. I think a lot of people think it's a shitty movie, and I think most people acknowledge Quantumania had a lot of problems. Even the more positive people of the MCU, I don't want to say that like in a negative sense, but like a lot of people that are more positive about the MCU than I have been lately, even they were very negative about this movie. So I think this movie kind of started like, I mean, I don't think it started the problems. I think Marvel were having these problems last year in 2022. I think Quantumania was just a straw that broke the camel's back. But let's get into Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. I love this movie, which is, again, very extreme, but I find that ironic about Phase 5. Phase 5 is literally just the extreme. You have, in my opinion, one of the, if not the worst Marvel movies they've ever made. And then their next movie is like my favorite MCU movie. It is, I think it's the best MCU, one of the best, or if not the best MCU movies ever. So that total whiplash is crazy. I already reviewed Guardians 3. I reviewed Quantumania, even though I ragged on it. But I already reviewed Guardians 3. I love the movie. I've rewatched it several times, and I still think it is my favorite MCU movie. I just love the Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy so much. As you can tell from my profile picture, I just love Guardians of the Galaxy. It was what really got me interested in the MCU. I mean, although I did watch Iron Man and the Avengers, I wasn't really consistently watching every MCU movie, right? Like I liked Iron Man, he was cool, and then the Avengers movie was kind of cool, but I wasn't really, keeping up with the MCU. Guardians of the Galaxy interested me. I watched it. I was like, oh, wait a minute. They're there's a whole, a bunch of other movies that kind of tie into this. Let me go back. Let me rewatch the entirety of the MCU with the Iron Man movies, plus Captain America, Thor, Hulk, and you rewatch the Avengers and all this other stuff. And Guardians of the Galaxy, I just love this franchise. I love this team. But let's put my personal bias aside. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania hurt the image of Marvel because people were not willing to really go out and see Guardians 3 out of the fear that it was going to be bad. Now, me personally, I knew this movie was going to be good. James Gunn was at the helm, so I don't think James Gunn would have fumbled the ending to his own series. At the same time, a lot of people were burnt out. A lot of people were like, wow, Quantumania was really horrible. I don't know if I could trust Marvel again for Guardians 3. And you could tell because, in my opinion, I think if Marvel, and again, I think this is just maybe, I wouldn't say a fact, but it's just my opinion. If Marvel had a consistent quality flow, let's just say we don't release Quantumania in the space between Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, and Guardians 3, I think Guardians 3 would have opened bigger. Because a lot more people were positive about Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. In fact, a lot of people love that movie. I like that movie. I wouldn't say it's not as good as the first one, but I don't like it as much as the first one, but I thought it was good. I mean, it's pretty close to the first one. Like, it's not, for me, it's not a varying degree of quality between the two. But with Guardians 3, I feel like people just, I feel like, okay, people were like, oh, wow, they did really good with Black Panther. Guardians looks promising, whatever, right? Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is the biggest opening weekend of the year for Marvel, with $118 million. And 118 is not a horrible number. Like, I don't want you guys to come in and say, "Wow, 118." No, 118 is not horrible for a comic book movie. It's not horrible for any movie. But in the case of Marvel, where you have movies like Doctor Strange gross $187 million, Black Panther 2 181, I would at least think Guardians 3 would open way bigger than $118 million. However, as I said, Quantumania really hurt the brand. I think you saw the after effects. And then but people love this movie. People really love this movie. They really digged it. In fact, a lot of people are saying that this was the only good MCU movie. I agree. And a lot of people were like, okay, this was the only like good thing they've made, along with No Way Home and Black Panther. And I agree. I think it is that, exactly that. And it was a remnants of an old era of Marvel because this movie was written, well, first by James Gunn, but also was written before the 2020s, before Kevin Feige started to plague the MCU with Rick and Morty writers on every project. And in that sense, Guardians 3 was a quote unquote return to form where everybody was like, oh my god, we're so back. For me, it wasn't a we're so back because this was just the ending of Guardians of the Galaxy. This was James Gunn's last movie. So, in my opinion, I was like, the MCU isn't back. This was just kind of like the last goodbye thing they had for this movie. But overall, Guardians 3 would have amazing legs because the word of mouth for this movie was so good, that it would have one of the best second weekend holds of the MCU, along with the first Black Panther. And the film would overall gross $800 million worldwide. Yes, could this movie, if Ant-Man didn't happen and whatever, if Marvel had consistently got the quality, is there a possibility for Volume 3 to gross $1 billion? I think so. Because I think what stopped Doctor Strange from making $1 billion was just the quality of the movie. I think a lot of people were just kind of disappointed with that movie. And it was close to breaking $1 billion. So I think if it wasn't a disappointing movie, it would have cracked $1 billion. Black Panther Wakanda Forever, the fact that it was got near $1 billion is impressive because you don't have the main star of the movie, Chadwick Boseman. in that movie, so it makes sense that the Wakanda Forever didn't make a billion. But Guardians 3, you have all the characters. You have all the characters. There's the goodbye to the Guardians. This could have easily made a billion, but again, as I said, like people were being burned by the MCU. But again, Guardians 3 is the highest grossing it's the highest grossing comic book movie of the year. And I don't think that's gonna change. It is the highest grossing comic book movie of the year. It is the highest grossing live action comic book movie of the year because, as you can see, every other live action comic book movie, spoilers for what I will talk about DC, have not done well. And you're just sitting here like, oof, yikes. But Guardians 3, I would say, was the only success that Marvel Studios can confidently say, okay, fans loved it, critics loved it, it did well at the box office. That's the only movie I can say. That's the only project, even that I can say that. Let's get into Secret Invasion, a total whiplash. I skipped Secret Invasion because I know a lot of you are going to be like, what? You're lying. But the trailers did not interest me. I think I don't know if I said it in a video, but I did say that Secret Invasion did not have my interest. Like, the trailers didn't really give me a reason to care. Yes, okay, you're using the name Secret Invasion from the comics, which is reliable, scrolls, whatever. Turns out the creators of this show didn't even fucking read the comics. They didn't care. They were like, we never read the comics. We were just kind of doing our own thing. Secret Invasion had to be reshot. And Secret Invasion was the end. And I'm going to say this. It was the end of the 6-episode Disney Plus era. I think Secret Invasion broke and exposed Marvel's process of doing TV, because there was an article before the Variety one that just kind of, we all kind of assumed with the quality of the shows, especially with She-Hulk, right? Not a diss on She-Hulk. I don't hate She-Hulk because, oh my God, it's a woman, whatever. No, I think She-Hulk has legit problems, has a show. But you look at She-Hulk, you look at like Miss Marvel-ish, Moon Knight. A lot of these shows are, in my opinion, very half-baked. Some of them start off strong in the case of Miss Marvel and Moon Knight, and then they just progressively don't be good. And I think Secret Invasion was just, for Ant-Man, for the movie side, it was Ant-Man that was the straw that broke the camel's back. For the Disney Plus side, it was Secret Invasion. Secret Invasion it was too much. It was too much. There is apparently universe-changing stuff. I didn't watch it, but I heard from what people said, there is kind of this big event. And that happens with the Skrulls, and then the president's like, you're gonna get to kill all Skrulls, and that's like a pretty big deal. But I will say that, does it even tie into the Marvels? No. Not a care. This show, it feels like this show doesn't even exist. That's what it feels. It feels like, oh, okay. The ratings for the show weren't amazing either. I think it is one of the lowest, not the lowest. I think it is the second lowest. The only one that it did slightly better than is Miss Marvel. That's it. It did better than Miss Marvel. And you see Nick Fury and Miss Marvel that are going to be in your upcoming big blockbuster movie, which got delayed. At the time, it was supposed to come out in July. They delayed it to November. Thank God they did, because I think they would have been destroyed by Barbenheimer, to be honest, the way tracking for the Marvels is going. But we're going to save that for the Marvels talk. But yeah, two of the stars of that movie, their shows are like some of the lowest viewed MCU shows, and then just the negative reception. Fans hated this show, critics hated this show. It was the second rotten reviewed MCU project in this year alone, which bumped it up to 3 projects that were rotten reviewed. I think Secret Invasion was not a good. From what I'm all hearing, and people, I think Marvel even admitted, yeah, Secret Invasion was just not good. Even Marvel was like, Secret Invasion didn't work. And when I mean it exposed, I mean it truly exposed Marvel's way of handling television, because they don't have show bibles, they don't have pilot episodes where they can see the pilot episode. They could be like, hey, this is working, this isn't working, let's just cut some of this, let me see what other parts work. None of that. For Secret Invasion, they just filmed the first season because they were like, okay, let's greenlight this show, let's film the first season. Then they were like, oh, this show doesn't work, let's fix it in post, which is horrible, because you're hearing, this is just kind of the slogan. I bet you Kevin Feige has this on his shirt, fix it in post. That attitude did not work for any of these movies and shows. You need strong writing and a good creative team, which I think Guardians of the Galaxy 3 and this next show we're going to talk about have, which is a good creative team and good writers, because post-production can do so much. If you have a terrible script, it does not matter. I learned this in film class. I mean, this is basic. I would think Kevin Feige would know this. He went to film school, right? That it does not matter. Your movie could look amazing, visually beautiful. Does not matter. If the script doesn't work, the movie doesn't work. And in the case of Secret Invasion and most of these Marvel movies and shows, their scripts just don't work. Sorry for the background, but their scripts just don't work. And then they just go into production with these half-ass scripts, and then they're surprised by the quality of these projects, and then they're like, okay, let's fix it in post. That's not the attitude you should have, man. Your attitude should have been, let's write an amazing script for Secret Invasion, for Ant-Man, for whatever you're making. Like creatively, let's start there. And then if we think the script is good, we'll get produced. This is why James Gunn threw a shot at Marvel. He was like, we're not going to move forward with projects until the script is locked. Until the script, we are confident in the script. We think the script is good for either movie or shows. And I don't know why Marvel just didn't have that philosophy. But anyways, one of the most negatively reviewed, I think more negatively reviewed than She-Hulk, to be honest. And on top of that, I think the ratings for the show weren't good, because it wasn't really a big show. It didn't really blow up in viewership. And by the time the show ended, usually MCU shows, they have a little other week. I mean, this is for every Disney Plus show, supposedly, until recently, I guess, where they have a little bit of a surge with binging. And, that's like the week after the finale. Secret Invasion fell off a cliff after the finale week. And I don't blame them, because the finale, from what I heard, is one of the worst MCU episodes that they've ever made. Which is ironic, because I think Loki created one of the best episodes just this week at the time making this video of the MCU. One of the best episodes that the MCU has made for Disney Plus. Now let's talk about Loki season 2. Now we cannot talk about overall how the Loki show is doing, like the entire season's worth, but viewership is kind of low for Loki. Viewership it's not the great. There's clearly a huge decline from people that watch season 1 to people that watch season 2. I watched season 2. This was the last Disney Plus show I wanted to watch. And I never regretted it, because I think season 2 is better than season 1. I'm not going to get into all the details, but I think, the overall clear story the season had. I think the character arc for Loki was amazing. And I thought the finale, the rare time, I think this is the only time, besides Loki season 1, but I mean, even people had their gripes with Loki season 1. I think this is the first show that had a great finale. You look at WandaVision, I thought WandaVision was pretty good. It was pretty good. Had a terrible ending. Falcon and Winter Soldier, mid, had a terrible ending. Loki season 1 I gave a pass to, because it was leading into season 2, which I thought the season 1 finale, for a season finale, knowing there's a second season, I thought Loki was fine. I thought the Loki finale was fine. I thought the Loki season 2 finale was amazing. But speaking of, let's get into whatever. I thought the whole show was whatever. Hawkeye had a pretty bad finale. Moon Knight had a pretty bad finale. Miss Marvel had a pretty bad finale. She-Hulk had an awful finale, probably the worst finale. But apparently people are saying Secret Invasion has the worst finale. So clearly, Marvel has never nailed their finales. Loki season 2 broke that curse and actually nailed the finale to the show. And on top of that, I think, what does this mean for the MCU at large? Because there is big events that happen, like the restructuring of the TVA, where all the branches are, multiverse, and all this stuff. And I think that's fascinating. I think though, like I loved it. I loved it so much. Kind of spoilers for Loki. Skip around to the Marvels part. Actually, let's talk about Loki. Like I said, the viewership is a big decrease. Whatever. Let's talk a little spoilers with Loki, and what it means for the MCU. So if you've seen Loki or you just don't care, then you can talk. If you haven't seen Loki yet, get off this video, or skip to the Marvels part. But either pause this video, go watch the finale or the season if you're interested, because it is worth people's time. And I don't want to give everything away because I think people should actually watch Loki season 2. I think Loki season 2 is one of the best things they've ever made. That being said, man, the way they leave the multiverse. So Loki kind of is controlling the multiverse as if it was the life tree, the tree of life, or I think that's what it's called. I could be wrong, but it is from the Thor comics. The big tree that is part of the Thor mythology that's connected to the 9 realms. In the MCU, it's the tree that is connecting the entire multiverse that is ran by Loki on his throne. Which, oh my god, that scene was so fucking awesome, dude. But anyways, they do leave, I mean, the TVA, they do leave it open. They're like, okay, the TVA is kind of hunting down Kang variants, or He Who Remains variant, and they have it out because they're like, oh, there was some ruckus with Kang. They talked about Quantumania, but they said, I mean, he hasn't really been a threat. So they have two things. They can finally drop the Kang subplot because now they have it out. They have a actual out. So, because let's talk about Kang. So, there was a lot of bullshit, as I said in the Variety article, but I do think things that are true are them talking about Kang. Because obviously the Jonathan Major stuff has been happening with the legal troubles, whatever. What's going to happen with Kang and all that stuff. We already knew this. We already knew Marvel was already having discussions about how to handle Kang going forward in the MCU. And then on top of that, I think another realistic reason why they were kind of, maybe a little bit thinking, maybe we shouldn't do Kang is what I mentioned earlier back in the video, Quantumania bombing at the box office. Because who was the poster boy for that movie? Not even Ant-Man. Kang the Conqueror was the poster boy for that movie. So, and I mean, although everybody said Kang was the best part of the movie, even myself, even though I'm not a big Kang fan, Marvel's going to look at that and they're like, oh, we put all our chips on Kang. And the movie bombed. So maybe let's readjust. And I think some fans like Kang. I think overall the idea of Kang has not worked in the MCU. I think there's parts that have worked, like He Who Remains, and I kind of liked Victor Timely, but I think the overall concept of Kang is too confusing for the MCU. The MCU has always been kind of a basic story. When we look at the Infinity Saga, it wasn't that complex of a story. We gotta collect these 6 magical stones, these 6, stones, and then we're building up to Thanos. Thanos wants to get the 6 stones and wipe half the population, and the heroes gotta stop that. That's it. It was pretty basic. We get into Kang, we're talking about different multiverses, different variants, who's good, who's bad, multiversal war, crossing over with all these other movies and whatever, and it's just like, it's too confusing for Marvel. Because the MCU has never been that complex. And that's not to say the MCU can't try to be complex, but I think it's too much for them. And they all fell under the pressure of just how to handle Kang. And also, Kang is a time travel villain, and they're mixing time travel and multiverse. And I mean, those are two very different concepts, and now they're trying to make them as one. And that made it more confusing. So it's just, you're just kind of rolling your eyes like, oh my god, this Kang stuff is a lot. And they're thinking, we might agree. Because now people didn't really react well to Ant-Man. And we don't think the character's really clicking. Jonathan Majors has his own legal troubles, and I've heard a lot of people say recast. And I think although I do agree that is also another easy alternative. I think Marvel is starting to realize they just made a mistake. Even just introducing Kang, they made a mistake. I think now it's hitting them like, ooh, maybe Kang isn't the villain that should lead the multiverse saga, and they're going with Doctor Doom. And seeing that they were building the Secret Wars, I think they should have started with Doctor Doom to begin with. I mean, yes, I understand maybe a Fantastic Four movie couldn't be up and running by 2020 or 2021. I understand that. At the same time, you can still have Doctor Doom as a character appear in some of these movies, set him up as a villain, and then maybe beginning of Phase 5, instead of Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, you start with Fantastic Four. And then you start setting up the relationship between Reed and Doom, and you build that up over the course of Phase 5 and Phase 6 until we get to Avengers Secret Wars, where it's going to be the ultimate, ironically, Fantastic Four story like it was in the comics, or at least the version of Secret Wars that they're adapting. But, I mean, anyways, both versions of Secret Wars are more or have Doctor Doom at the center point instead of Kang the Conqueror. So I could realistically understand why they would want to move to Doom. And now with the Loki Season 2 finale, they can. Because Kang has been very limited, actually. He's been very contained. He's been just mostly in the Loki series, and he was in Quantumania. That was it. And the way Quantumania also ended, they don't really have to touch up on Kang either. So, really, it's just, what is Marvel's choice? I think they actually do have it out now. But at the same time, is it too late to introduce Doctor Doom at this juncture? Probably. But that doesn't change the fact that if they want to, they can get away from all this Kang stuff. But let's talk about the Marvels finally. And in the case of the Marvels, I just saw the movie last night, so this has got to be a semi-review. Overall, I would say this is the most mixed Marvel movie in terms of reaction. Some people like it, others don't like it, others find it mid. And I am in that camp that find the Marvels mid. I don't think it's a horrible movie. I actually think the Marvels had a lot of potential to be a pretty good movie with the ideas they had. I think it was just like, wow, there's a lot of good ideas you could have done for a Captain Marvel movie, and you just kind of rush them, or you don't focus on them. And it's like, okay. And I think Sean Chandler said it best. This feels like a Captain Marvel 3 instead of a Captain Marvel sequel, because there is just a huge chunk of the, like, if you go from Captain Marvel 1 to this movie, you feel like, oh my god, we probably lost a huge chunk of Carol's story. Like, something feels like a misstep. It feels like we should have had a Captain Marvel movie that happened before this. And also, I've never seen a movie that was just kind of rushed. It was just kind of speed running through to like the third act. That's how I felt about the movie. I felt like overall, if you want my like rating, I would give the Marvels maybe a 6 out of 10. It's not horrible. It's not an awful movie. I don't think it is the worst MCU movie they've ever made, but it is the definition of mid. And I find that funny that Phase 5 has hit every single shade. You have Guardians 3, which I thought was amazing. You have Loki, which was pretty good. You have the Marvels, which is just mid. And then you have Loki. Not Loki. You have Quantumania, which is the worst of the worst of Marvel's tendencies. But hopefully the Marvels is like the last of like just a half-assed movie. Because this movie was very half-assed. And I've seen a lot of people be aggressive like, it's a fun movie. That's why you go to the movies. Yeah, that's true. Some movies are just fun movies, yeah. But I also want a movie to be good. Like, I can acknowledge a bad movie being fun. I mean, I don't think, I mean, I know this is gonna sound horrible. I don't think the Marvels was that fun. I think people kind of over exaggerated that. Like, I don't know, it was fine. Like, I'm not saying it wasn't like, oh, you're not, it's not fun, blah blah blah. I was like, bruh, it's like a below average superhero movie. It's very sloppy and had pretty good action. That's it. That was my only takeaway. And obviously, the post credit scene is out there already. I mean, everybody already kind of got spoiled about the post credit scene, and they just probably don't care about it. Like, they're like, okay, we kind of knew it. For the sake of this video, because at the time making this video, the Marvels is pretty recent. Like, it just came out yesterday, technically 2 days ago, because it came out on Thursday. But and I just thought that I looked at that post credit scene. When I first heard it, I was like, "Oh my god, they're really trying to nostalgia bait people at this point." Now that I saw it, I was like, I mean, it's interesting, but was it really worth sacrificing Captain Marvel's sequel for the movie we got when you could have used that money and resources on a better version of a Captain Marvel 2? Or hell, a Miss Marvel movie, if we're being real, because she was like the only part of the movie that I felt like was pretty good. I mean, even Sam Jackson was just fucking voting it in at this point. I feel like Sam Jackson he doesn't care anymore about his role as Nick Fury, because oh my god, I don't want to say it's his worst performance as Nick Fury, because it's not his worst, but it was for sure his most phoned in. Like, definitely his most phoned in appearance as Nick Fury. Like, you're just like, this guy's a goofball, or they just didn't care anymore. For the Marvels, business wise, how will this impact the MCU? I think this will be like the last of the issues with the MCU. I think this will be the last movie, because they are reworking. We're going to talk about this in the upcoming 2024-2025 video that I'm going to do. They are reworking a lot. So I think the Marvels will be the last movie of this weird era of Marvel that we've been, where it's very half-assed. I think this is crescendoing because this is tracking to be the lowest opening weekend of the MCU's history. That's shocking. It's the Marvels is going to do worse than back in 2008, The Incredible Hulk. That's like, Marvel has not had an opening that went lower than 55 million, which is pretty impressive. But the Marvels is going to break that. Not even in the pandemic, with movies like Shang-Chi and Eternals and even Black Widow, which was day and day, none of them went below 55 million for their opening. So I think Marvel's already redoing the restructure. I feel like Marvel is already doing a lot of the restructuring. They're already doing a lot of the changes that we've wanted them to do. They're listening to the fans, and they're like, okay, these are just not working. I think the Marvels will just be kind of the catalyst of it. They're like, okay, it was part of the old era. We're just gonna have to take the punches with the Marvels, and we're gonna have to move on into what we're planning to do. And I think that's fascinating. I think that is very interesting that Marvel has taken that approach now. And whatever happens to the Marvels, like, it doesn't matter what you shout. The only problem is that they might not do another Captain Marvel movie. Which is, because we saw what happened to Eternals. Eternals had a pretty decent opening weekend. 71 million. That movie underperformed. Where the fuck have the Eternals been since? we haven't heard a goddamn peep from the Eternals. We don't know where the Harry Styles, where the fuck is that guy at? Like, nah, they have not touched anything with the Eternals. They haven't even bothered to mention anything that has happened with the Eternals. So, in the case of Captain Marvel and where they leave things, I feel like the only characters that will be brought back is Miss Marvel, because of what they set up, and also because I think Miss Marvel, they're putting a lot of stock in this character, even though they fucked up like every goddamn corner of her character. I mean, I still like Miss Marvel, but I'm like, you're just doing everything opposite from the comics, which is crazy, which is fucking crazy. Like, I've never seen this. I've never seen them do this to a character before. They're like, the character itself we nailed, but let's just do everything opposite that the comics did with her, which is like, okay. But anyways, Monica, I believe we will see Monica again, seeing where they clearly left this movie off in the post-credit scene. And I don't know if we're going to see Captain Marvel again, especially with the energy that Brie Larson has had for this role. And I don't blame her. She's got a lot of hate. I think the hate is exaggerated. I think the hate is extremely exaggerated. So yeah, this movie, it might not do. They're gonna blame it. I feel like it's just gonna do more damage, not to the MCU brand, but to female superhero movies. And because a lot of them just haven't been good or just haven't been well received, and a lot of them bombed. Birds of Prey, Wonder Woman 1984. I mean, Black Widow did it. I wouldn't say Black Widow bombed, but Black Widow wasn't amazing either. Like, the only successful female-led superhero movie was Black Panther 2. That's it. So, I'm gonna, like, this might be a bleak future for female superhero movies. I hope they do more of them. I hope they do good ones, though. I think the Marvels and a lot of those movies are just half-assed. I think if you want more female superhero movies, you have to make them legit good, like really good. And this isn't a slight at the Marvels. I thought Quantumania was the worst movie they released this year, and that stars fucking a white dude. So this is an attack on women. I think this is just saying Marvel, if they want to represent all these people, they want to represent black people, they want to represent Pakistani people, if they want to represent black people, well, I already said black people, but if they want to represent women, if they want to do all these things, they're gonna have to make the things they're in good. Because if you make the things they're in bad, people are gonna be turned off, and then you're gonna be like, oh, this didn't work. It's probably because of them. And it's like, no, it's because you didn't make it good. So I hope that, you know, these actresses get something good out of this, but I feel so bad for them. I mean, especially Brie Larson. I mean, she's just been getting the rough end of the stick since she's joined the MCU. So, yeah, it's rough out there. But overall, that is the state of address for the MCU in 2023. Very much so a mixed bag, but overall, mostly negative. There have been bright spots of good, but a lot of this is negative. A lot of this is like very wake up call. And I think I said, I don't know if I did it. I don't think I did a 2023 video, but I have mentioned, maybe not on video, but I did mention like to people I talked to, I'm like, before this year, this lineup came out, I was like, I don't know, Marvel 2023, I'm not crazy about. Like, there's not a lot of things that have me crazy. I did not expect a lot of these to bomb, though. I did not expect the Marvels to underperform. I didn't expect Quantumania to underperform. I didn't expect Secret Invasion to fall on its face. And I did not expect Loki Season 2 to not have as much of the viewership from Season 1. Like, legit, one out of the 5 projects they released was both a critical hit and then a financial hit. And that's Guardians 3. And that's like that creative team or that creative person, James Gunn, has left your studio and is gonna be working for DC. Your competitor. He's now your competitor. And he just gave you your last good, successful movie. So I think for Marvel, that's the wake up call. I think none of this is good. None of this is good. But we will see if Marvel will change as we will talk about the upcoming 2024-2025 slate. So, anyways, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.